I'm Simon Wilson. I'm the founder and managing director of Studio Things, which is the little company that I run at the moment. Yeah, my first job I started in Easter of 1998, just before the World Cup at Sporting Life, which is a little department of press association just down the road here in Leeds. I've been in my current role now for about 6 months. I think through my whole career, I've worked at bigger organisations, from the Press Association to Brahm through to 26, and then my last role was as Creative Development Director at home up in Leeds. And I thought it was a good time just to kind of go away. I felt I had enough experience, I felt I had enough confidence, and I thought, rather than going on to another agency or another organisation, just have a crack at doing my own thing. No, there aren't at the minute. And I think, if you'd asked me this, if it'd been a year ago and I was at, places like Home and I was at Bloom and 26 and Fuse 8, yeah, there was. But I think that's because you're in an environment where there are conditions around you that you can't control. The way that we work and the control we have over our work is one of the great things of what we're doing. Come back in 3 months' time and we have a massive job on, we're probably 2 weeks away from it going live. It might be a different story altogether. But at this moment in time, I have nothing that keeps me awake at night, and that's great. Hopefully, maybe these things will diminish over the next few months, and I'll feel fresh-faced again. But there's nothing that generally keeps me awake at night. If you'd say an average day, you're going to take an average. I think an average day is that you just come in and enjoy yourself. I think if you have an average day and you're going away and you don't enjoy your work, I think you've got to look at your position and what you're doing. And I say, that's been my barometer. If I didn't enjoy doing this, I'd shut the business and go and do something else. And I think that's the only big bit of thing I'd say out of it is how you feel about what you do is your barometer of averageness in that sense. There's this general feeling, and I had it at the weekends. I was at a wedding and my family were there, and everyone just thinks all I do is doss around on computers and therefore I can fix things. They're half right. I doss around on computers a lot, but I also doss around with paper and stuff, and all this is means to an end. So if there's a common misconception, it's the idea that I can fix computers. I'm awful with wireless routers and stuff like that, as a lot of people could testify to. I'm very good at hacking though, I'm very good on servers and stuff like that, but that's a very different thing to making sure that people's computers connect to their modems and stuff like that. A lot of people don't understand necessarily when I say to them I'm an experienced designer or a product designer or a service designer, but when you explain the idea of products and services to people, they do get that. So that's more of an education thing that needs to happen. But the misconception things, that's just stuff that happens when I see my relatives. You learn from everything you do. Everything should come with a challenge in some shape or form, otherwise you're not pushing yourself, you're not learning. There are a lot of situations where I've inherited very challenging situations, and a lot of those in the agency world is where the new business person has a more salesy role, and they'll just sell the thing and then it gets passed on to you, and you're within the agency, it kind of gets lumped towards you like a hot potato, and then you're like, oh, what I've got to do with this. A few years ago I went to an agency and they'd won a massive piece of work and there was a number of projects within it, and I think, if I'm being honest, I think the situation, one of those projects was something that you couldn't rationalise how it could be done and why it should be done, and I was struggling with the whole idea that, to the guy who'd sold it, it was just like, well, that's 30 grand into the agency, whereas me, it was just like, well, this is wasting money, there's no point in it. And it ended up being a point where you're speaking to the client and the client's like, why do we need this? And they're starting to echo what you're thinking. Those are the most tricky situations, and I think that happens a lot in agencies. When agencies recruit staff, it's usually because they've won some work and you go into an agency to pick up what someone else has brought in, and I think in a lot of situations those are the most challenging situations. If you can get past those projects and then you get yourself in a position where you're the one pitching, you're the one winning the work, and you're the one with the client, then yeah, that's cool. But the project I'm thinking of was very, very long, big project, and I would say if you were going into something and they'd already won some work and they wanted you to pick that up, seriously ask about the project and all the details before you go in, because it can just make it a point where you can be in a really great, fun place to work, but you really hate that piece of work you're doing. I think that the stuff that I feel the most proud about are the ones where I go and tell my kids about them. My kids are like my judges in that sense. And, you know, sometimes my wife is. Sometimes my wife takes an interest in what I do. Personally, I joined Fuse A a few years ago, and I'd spent 9 years working at Brahm, and Persimmon were Brahm's main client. And I'd spent a lot of time working on the advertising and the digital side of Persimmon and Charles Church. And Fuse A, when I joined them, had just won the Persimmon website and the Charles Church website. And it's a situation where I went into where they'd won the work, and I just went to pick it up. It's not the situation I was talking about earlier. But I put a lot of the experience and knowledge that I got from my years at Brahm working on Persimmon and Charles Church, not only on them as a client but also in the sector, but managed to take advantage of the fact I was working at a new place and there's a fresh attitude. And it felt on the client side there was a kind of freshness as well. You know, they were willing to try new things, and it was a great experience because stuff I think we talked about before when I was at Brahm kind of hit a brick wall for various reasons. But then when I was at Fuse A, you know, they were open to this sort of stuff. You know, and it's just little things about getting them to think about how new homeowners think about homes. Just little things of getting them into that, and they're really open to a lot of the ideas, and the website's still up there. And I mean, personally, it's one of the things I'm most proud of. It's a great website, and when it gets pulled down, which invariably will do, or get retired, I'll probably like shed a little tear. But it's probably the one thing, because it was a culmination of all my years of doing work throughout, and the way I could take the good and the bad and the stuff we can improve on and put it into this one project. And yeah, so there was one thing, it'd be that Persimmon website. There's a number of businesses, there's a number of organisations that I think are doing great stuff. I think if you were to think of it, a digital agency, I have all the time in the world for Huge, who are based out of Brooklyn over in New York. They are doing some amazing stuff, and they are literally huge now. And that's for good reason. The way they approach work, the way they do work is brilliant. I have a lot of time for RJA as well. And they're a good example of a business, how it can change its colours as well. When I was growing up, I was really into films, and you know, on the titles at the end, it'd say that the titles were done by RGA. You know, they used to do the titles for films, and then at some point they've changed the crux of the company, so now they make digital things, and they do a lot of great work. And I think that kind of shows us that, you know, you can be a business but you can change what you do. And I think more locally, I've always had a lot of time for the guys at Computer Love. I think the way they've slowly built things up, and I think, you know, the way they conduct themselves, I think that the work they do, they tend to do a lot of great work, and I think, you know, they should be really proud of what they do. And I think there's a lot of us out there, I think, who do look towards what they do, and the way they seem to be sensibly run as well. I think it's good that they've incrementally grown, and I think they're confident in what they do, and having that confidence throughout, whether that's financial, whether that's the way the company's run, and in terms of the output they do, is amazing. And it'd be great to think maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, if you could talk about Computer Love maybe in the same way I've just talked about Huge. I think if you're really interested in something, I think find the one thing that you're really interested in as early as you can, and try and learn as much as you can, but also put that into practice, show you can make something. When I go to the universities and talk there, one of the things that really surprises me is how little tangible products the students have. And for me, that's the big thing, is if I wanted to move jobs, someone would look at my CV, they'd look at my body of work. And if you're a student, you're not going to have a body of work, but I think you've got to show that proof that you've done something. And for me, that's a case of finding someone that can do the bits you can't do, and working together as a team. That's another massively overlooked skill. If you can make something, no matter how small it is, at least you're showing a willing to try. And I think that would put you right at the top of any pile that you've actually had a go at doing something. A lot of what we do is not being afraid of having a go. Get something down there and it gets a bit of criticism to make it better. That's cool, because the idea is we make something as good as possible. So I'd say to anyone who wants to try and get into it, is read as much as you can, have a go at making something, and see where it takes you. There's no harm in trying.